So this is Mickael Forde, and he's going to give us a quick rundown of his pieces and then just jump into the observations. Go.
Hi, good day, everyone. Hope everyone is hearing me clear. So the 10 pieces I chose were specifically from two different bands because the perspective I went into this was to more or less compare the thought process and how the arrangers approach the use of the devices. So I chose 5 from Tropical Angel Harps, which was more soca from the year 2020. So Ragstorm 2019, Sweet for Days, which is 2018, um, Nostalgia, that is 2016 and 2017 single. And from Silver Stars, I chose It's Showtime from 2011, Give Them Tempo 2012, Shock Attack 2013, um, The Reason 2014, and Edwin's Legacy at 2015. Now, comparing these two bands, it is said that in the Panorama world, each band has their own sound. And going into this research, I had that in mind, but I didn't know why it was said that each band has their own sound. Because to me, I'm being a member of the rhythm section in the Panorama. To me, most of the stuff sounds a bit monotonous and the same. But now I'm getting a chance to actually dig into the arrangements and understanding a lot more of what is happening than to what I usually listen and look out for. Now it makes sense why each band is known for a particular song and a particular thing. So with Tropical Angel Harps, while going over there, 5 arrangements. One thing that was done in each of the arrangements was the use of um, chromaticism and diatonic runs to link sections, whereas in with Silver Stars, they use more band phrases to connect ideas, right? In terms of the structure, um, I would say that yes, they followed the typical panorama structure, but that was with Angel House or with Silver Stars. They had a little twist with the development going into the recapitulation, because there were a few arrangements where after the development they went back into recapitulation, but they end up doing a whole new variation of the verse or of the chorus, which then leads into a whole new theme in the conclusion, right? Um, Another thing I noticed was that the performance styles of the two bands kind of helped because with um with Silver Stars, they are known for their speed and their flashy and presentation. And with that, I have noticed that when they are playing their music, the background pans and being the cellos, the chords, the basses, and the guitars, they are always doing something to keep you interested. So like while the frontline pans are playing the melody and something monotonous is happening, the rhythm section is there and they are hitting band phrases in the background to kind of enhance what is being played by the front line and to still maintain that excitement and that drive. Another thing I was kind of confused about was how band phrases are used and hammer strokes. Um, One thing I noticed with the band phrases is that there are band phrases that the entire band plays, and then there are phrases that the rhythm section and background pans play by themselves, while the frontline pans carry out a specific piece of music. And one thing I've noticed is that yes, it is common among most bands where the rhythm section accents stuff that the front line does, and then the accent stuff that the background pans do. That is one thing I've noticed is the arrangement. Where, but with Silver Stars, it is more common for the rhythm section to have more of an interaction between the different sections of the pan, where there are times where in the development section, most cases for Silver Stars, as the development section begins, the cellos take responsibility of holding the main and melody line, while the frontline pan goes off and plays like just tricks, I could call it, and they just like going. And while that is happening, the rhythm section is highlighting key rhythmical points within their phrasing. And then while that is happening, if the background pans are doing any significant changes, the rhythm section also highlights those changes. Another thing too is that with tropical angel harps as well, when they are transitioning into sections, they rely on band phrases, but not as heavy as, whereas in the front line are now they are the ones, or like the main persons who carry the energy and throughout the piece, whereas with Silver Stars is the background pans that carries the energies and they maintain the energy throughout the piece, because they are always changing and they never play something that is constant. There was one piece that I did, which was from Silver Stars, where the piece began in a minor key, and when they went into the development section, instead of having a minor section, they actually flipped it into a major, but it was only for a short period of time, and then they reverted back to the minor. In terms of devices and how the devices were used, Silver Stars used the devices in a more theatrical and dramatic way to add flair to what is already happening, whereas with Tropical Angel Harps, they use the devices in a way where it's like very cliche, where it is expected that, okay, a band phrase is coming up. Oh, and look at next chromatic run to lead into our next idea, you know? But with Silver Stars, it was more spontaneous in terms of they always had you on your toes in terms of what to experience next. There was one of the pieces, which is Edwin's Legacy. This one was composed by Liam T. Because the original arranger for the band, he had died in 2015. And Liam T decided to do a rendition of his past compositions, which was Edwin Pushet's compositions. Right, and with that was a dramatic change in terms of Silver Stars sound. As Silver Stars is known for their speed and their agility around the pan, they actually did a slow sound. But with that, they did a lot of I don't want to say sampling because I think that is the wrong thing to say. So where they highlighted.
You're talking about interpolation, where they brought in melodies from other songs?
Yes.
Interpolation, that's the word.
Okay, interpolation.
If you get stuck, you can say sampling, right? I mean, it's technically terminology isn't going to change overnight, but if you get the industry term really is interpolation, but you know what you want, you know what you mean, right? So for now, if you get stuck, you can say sampling, not a problem.
Okay. So with this piece, there's a lot of interpolations where they pulled a reference from Frank Sinatra on My Way. They also did where they brought in okay, I kind of forgot the rest, but yeah. But with that arrangement, the main thing was just interpolations and being used from the introduction. No interpolation was used within the exposition, but as the development came in, there was interpolations throughout until the end of the piece. Another thing too, when bands go into the minor section, as Mariah said before, they tend to change the genre into a Latin style groove, which is most common with most bands where they decide to use Latin. With Tropical Angel Harps, they basically did a Latin style groove for all their minors. Where with Silver Stars, they changed the groove many times. As I said before, they don't linger on something too long. So there was an arrangement where they started off with a Middle Eastern influence groove. And then from that, they went back to the original Calypso groove. And then they went into a kind of Latin groove. And then they came back into the Calypso groove. Right? Right. And while this is happening, I realized with Silver Stars as well, they have sections within the background pans that highlights the groove by doing certain rhythmical patterns that are pertaining to that main groove. And with Tropical Angel Harps, what they do is that they just let the rhythm section play the groove while the rest of fans play their respective music. You know? Yeah. So what I really learned from studying these two separate bands and their arrangements over the time period is that the arrangers have their own unique perspectives in terms of how the devices are used and where to use them. Some are very cliche, some are not. And whereas in Tropical Angel Harps is more the cliche band in terms of it is predictable and expected that this would be used here. Whereas with Silver Stars, it's more or less like a surprise in terms of what is to come next and how it's being used. Because Silver Stars use a lot of subito pianos. They use a lot of interpolations. They use a lot of band phrases. But I would have to put a question mark with the band phrases because it's more or less the background pans doing hits with the rhythm section accenting that while still maintaining the groove and allowing the frontline pans to not be interrupted. Another thing I have discovered too was that the use of rhythmical tension. So where Silver Stars use, there'll be a section of where the frontline will be playing a repeated theme. And while that repeated theme is happening, the basses, cellos, the guitars, and the chords would be hitting a heavily syncopated phrase until it comes to a point where these two sections are not on the meter. And then it so happens that further down the line, they eventually meet in their rhythms. And then it turns into this big break where now the drummer does a fill and brings them into a melodic idea. This was mostly used from transitions within the development. This was used mostly from transitions from the development into the recapitulation. And this was also used in the conclusion to mainly end off the arrangement.
So that's something I forgot to add to the index. But it's so we have this a syncopated passage, right? So you have they're playing and then they go right? So you have a syncopated passage. And then sometimes you have an extended syncopated passage, which is what you were talking about. It goes on until almost the syncopation is almost like a new tan 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 tan, right? And then you feel like, okay, now there's some, where's the meter? And then all of a sudden splash, and you realize you were in the correct meter all along. It was just this syncopated passage that kind of threw you off, right? So that's a device that I've seen in a lot of arrangements, right? And I'm glad that you pointed it out because you reminded me that I have to add that to the, or you could add it to the index. And then I could finesse it. Anything that you encounter, ladies and gentlemen, that's not in the index, you go ahead and write it up. Even if you don't have a name for it, write the description of it. And then we'll talk about those things and put labels on them as we can, so that, I mean, I expect that the index will grow and change as we get more specific in the things that we spot. But don't feel, well, yeah, I see a vamp, but it's a little bit different from what's in the index, but I'm not going to bother to record it. No, record it anyway, right? Because it's just likely that you've observed a variation of a technique that might be useful to somebody, right? So I'm glad that you pointed that out. I wanted to comment a little bit, Mickael, on, you were talking about something that's happening in the music that's monotonous, right? There's a passage where it's a little bit monotonous, and I want you to track down what is it that you're hearing, because I think that you're in your brain, you're saying this now becomes background sound in the arrangement. It's just this thing that's going on, but there's musical interest somewhere else, and the musical interest is, and what you've focused on a lot was musical interest going into the rhythm section. Right? So, no, that's good. That's not bad. That's good. So what I want is for you to figure out, what is the monotony? Are they just vamping? Are they just strumming? Right? You figure it out. As soon as you say monotonous, then you have to say to yourself, why does that word occur to me? Because that's the composer's intent.
Well, as you said that, for me, the monotony is more or less along the lines of something that the frontline bands will be playing. So where they would be like playing this pattern, same rhythmically, yeah, where the same rhythm is applied, where the only difference is that the notes that are being played. But the core thing is that the pattern and where it falls within the meter, it just stays the same.
Right. So you're describing a vamp, right? You're describing a vamp. So a vamp is just a little cell that repeats. And a lot of the time, yes, it is melodic, right? Some of the time it could be rhythmic as well, right? But particularly you see a vamp where somebody's, they're making some breathing space, you know? So you just, sometimes you hear a big break, blam, and then the drummer is going on and the rhythm section is going on and everybody's just dancing, right? And you have da-da-dum, and that goes on for a while. And so then you have the rhythm section and the drum vamping. They're just hitting that rhythm, right? Doing that little pattern just to give it a little energy, keep a little energy going, give people a little bit of a break, right? So that's part of the language of the panorama as well, right? So where you can have like a percussion break that is a vamp. It's not necessarily, you know, a big fanfare on the drums, but it's just a percussion break where the rhythm section and the drummer, they just keep things going, right? So I noticed that you described yourself as someone who has a lot of experience playing in the rhythm section, and a lot of your observations were about what the rhythm section was doing when something was happening in maybe a middle line or a low line or the front line, right? I say chase that down, right? See if it leads anywhere, right? That's some good stuff. All right. Well done. I know that we have still, so Markland isn't ready to present today. He's still working through his list. Astra just took center stage.